Hello. This is a newsletter in the form of an audio note. I just wanted to try it out as a new way to integrate the past month's dream messages and visions because I have not been creating many AI imagery, mostly because uh, the content feels too complex to capture in a single image, or there has been this reoccurring theme or storyline that's being woven in several dreams. So I wanted to try this out as another way of integrating. I think speaking the images and having them come out, flow like water, is a new way to help me. And not exactly new because I do send audio messages to my friends and share my visions that way. But I've never done it with the newsletter, so we'll see. Um, what is helping me right now is having Pablo at my feet, and he is snoring, so you might hear that. And then I am playing my friend Elliot Feinberg's music in the background, and I will link to that. Also, the music just helps put me in a more spacious, slower state because my natural way of being is to speak fast and think fast. So I already feel myself slowing down. And I have gone through all of my dream entries from the past month since August 8th, since the last time I sent out the newsletter. And I've made a list of what I consider to be the loudest images or messages. And this is not going to be edited or formatted or outlined in any way. So I will just start with what feels the most present for me. And usually I share what I consider to be transpersonal messages from dreams that don't really apply to my personal life or family system or anyone I know, but I think might 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 apply to everyone. And then one of the things that has been helping integrate and transmit some of these messages is to hold the weekly dream drop-in spaces on Zoom because the people that have been showing up to that, I feel instantly connected to and on the same wavelength with. And I find that my energetic field, my aura, becomes less bloated when I'm able to sit in a group or one on one with whoever feels called to be there at that moment. And often I find that the dreams that I've been having that week are meant specifically for them. And it feels like something beyond a psychic reading. It just feels like entering a psychic space and meeting each other in this other realm, other mindset, other state. And it does feel like outside of space and time, where there are a lot of synchronicities. So I am trusting those spaces as well. And I think that this might become a part of the newsletter. Where do I want to go with this? Oh, sharks. Yeah. Okay, I want to talk about sharks as animal teachers and animal guides because these are an animal that I have had a hard time accepting into my psychic space as a teacher worthy of a message. And that I understand to be because I grew up with a lot of internal belief structures that were programmed into me or implanted by the church and the concept of good and evil and this duality of those of the that there can only be good and evil. And so as a child I categorized animals as good and evil, and the very evil animals are sharks and crocodiles and vultures and snakes and all of the ugly ones, of course. And I've come around now because the animals actually speak and have a lot of wisdom and share that wisdom, and I feel very close to, sometimes more so than humans. And there are some animal guides that are family to me in the sense of they show up often and they speak clearly, and I have shape shifted into them in these visions and dreams. So I have not shape shifted into a shark, but I do have a lot of them show up. And because they have no soft features, and because they are very relentless in their pursuit and always show up as hunters and are so fierce, there's just there's no softness, there's no empathy that I can sense. I've just been very dismissive of them. And they always show up when it comes when they always show up in relation to dreams of my masculine lineage and my father's father and what I consider to be the conquistador blood, and also drug cartel blood, because that just feels very, from Mexico, very entangled. And so I do have these drug cartel dreams of being in these very gaudy Scarface higher realm mansions, and the floors are made of glass and there are sharks circling. But yet in the dream, I feel like these are my inherited houses and structures. And there's something that I'm meant to accept about them. But in these dreams, I often just go into like spiritual cleaner, angelic SWAT team, like a cleanser. Like I just want to tear these powerhouses down, because it feels like very negative powerhouses, and I don't want the sharks. And so I've just been rejecting these dreams. And in a recent one, I think it was a week and a half ago, I was again in one of my inherited houses that I lived in that felt like home, and it was underwater, and the view to the outside was ocean, and the sharks were circling around the house. And I felt very safe and protected, but there were also cracks that were starting to appear in the windows. And so I would go around and I would duct tape those cracks, and I would see the water leak out. And the other inhabitants of the house, which could be other versions of me, other aspects of me, they felt like my family, but this was definitely my house, were scared that the sharks were going to come in. But I was like eerily calm and accepting of what was inevitable, that the windows would shatter, would crack, would break, and that the water would rush in and the sharks would come in and be part of the house. I mean, the house was already sunken, so that would not change. These sharks would just be living amongst me. And so, what I was doing was I was moving all of my belongings from the lower floors of this structure to the higher floors, which I think is very symbolic of what I do. This whole process of soul development, I guess I would call it. This is of ascension, of moving everything up to a higher perspective, a higher floor, connecting with my higher self. So here I am, just moving all of my belongings as the water begins to leak inside my house, and everyone else is freaking out, and I am just duct taping, repairing what I can, but also accepting the inevitable. And and I wake up with this very clear message of the sharks as protectors, circling my house, protecting my house and all of my belongings or treasures or spiritual treasures, whatever you want to call it. And so I think that is the morning that I started to call them in as kind of like an invocation, a daily protection, some sort of psychic protection of this circle security ring of sharks, protecting my auric field, protecting my light body. So I will just share that without going too much into it. But if you have any questions, you can always just email me or comment or respond in some way about any of that. But I think hopefully that will make sense to you of how to use these animal guides that show up in dreams. My sister, I know she won't mind me sharing this, she only dreams of orcas. I have met my whale mothers and whale ancestors and have shapeshifted into whales and feel very connected to them, but they are always blue whales in my case. And sometimes the porpoises, like dolphin, the vaquitas, the Mexican vaquitas, those rare ones. But with my sister, it's always orcas. And they're always trying to drown her, and she's terrified of them. And I just keep telling her to listen and shift and change the dream, but nothing really gets through. So that's her process and her journey. And I can tell her all day long to just accept them as animal guides. But I also don't take that advice, or I did not take that advice when it came to the sharks. But now I do. And somehow my like Instagram algorithm has changed and all I get are really cute shark memes. And for some reason that's helping. I trust that that's not like a malevolent algorithm. I mean, I know my phone's listening to me, but sometimes the algorithms will work in your favor. So whenever I am scrolling and see the sharks, that also helps me connect with them more. Moving on from the sharks, I think another thing I wanted to talk about was the inherited houses or houses in dreams, which I see as symbols or representing our multidimensional body, taking into account all all aspects of our existence or being, meaning our emotional body, mental body, physical body, like us in our wholeness, and then the people that are living within the house are our inner inhabitants, the inhabitants of our kingdom, our sub personalities, our parts. That seems to be most often the case because I do hear about a lot of house dreams. And the most common things I hear are new floor plans, new rooms being discovered, leaky roofs, basements with issues. And so when I inherit these heritage houses, in some cases, they are shacks. They have been shacks. I remember I called it a legacy house. I'll put a link in the issue a couple years ago. I was a security guard for this legacy house, and it was like a torn down structure or a what is it called when something is damaged and they close it off? I can't, the word, I don't have it right now, but a condemned house that I was still obligated to provide security for and show up to. And within the dream, I realized that it was not worth it. It was locked up, and the belongings inside, what was left inside, had been ransacked and damaged. And that message was very clear about things we've inherited or, I don't know, traumas in our lineage, damages in our lineage, the things that we don't need any longer that have been passed down that we don't have to protect, that we can just abandon, that there are some things we can just leave behind and not carry on to our descendants or not hand down. That was one thing, one way to look at your inherited structures. You can also look at them as inherited programmings or imprints, soul imprints. It's so multidimensional that you'll know when you start looking at the symbol in this non-3D linear way and in the more imaginal, soulful way, you might get a sense of what the structure is symbolizing for you. In the case of the houses that I was dreaming, what I saw is like drug cartel houses or masculine conquistador houses being protected by sharks, or sharks underneath the floor boards or underneath the glass. I just knew that this was something handed down by my grandfather, my father's father, my grandfather's father, and I knew where in my bloodline this came from and what I needed to make peace with or accept or integrate. And lately the houses have been getting bigger. I inherited a historical house with so many rooms that I knew I couldn't just keep for myself. I didn't need that much space, but in the dream, the entire dream event felt like months within the dream, and then when I woke up, the entire night was spent in this heritage house, this very large house, historical house, multi-story house that just kept growing more and more rooms and spaces and floors. And in the dream, it needed to be restored, but I knew that it needed to be a community, not event, just something communal about it. So I opened it up to the public and I asked for help from the community in this dream realm. And there were people that volunteered their time and space to come and restore the windows and the lights and the floors. And in return, I gave them this space and made it completely open and transparent. And I feel like this is just something that I wish I could do in real life. But I don't have a huge house to gift to everyone or open up for events and for ceremonies and rituals, or like I did in the dream. But I do have my multi-dimensional self that I can make more transparent, and I think this is a part of that. Just sharing what I see behind or beyond the veil and how I work with it, and hopefully that inspires you to venture out in your own consciousness and create in the imaginal and pull from the imaginal spaces and let it affect your real 3D life in the way that I let my visions and my dreams and my higher self co-create reality with myself. So yeah, I think I'll stop there with the inherited houses, but that's something I wish I could create imagery for, but I realize they'll just look like houses. So I don't think that will be very helpful. I think these dreams want to be in dialogue with people. And I don't know what that will look like in the future. Maybe it's just more Zooms, but I think we should all be talking about our inherited house dreams. And it would be cool to have like a dedicated, like themed Zoom about the month's house dreams and how we are honoring them or taking action on them in real life, in our waking lives. Let's see. I'm going to pause and see if there's anything else that wants to come up. Okay, one more thing I want to add about inherited houses is power lines, because this is something I've seen in dreams a few times now. Is often I will be standing outside of a house on the street, and there will be something on the street power lines, which here in San Jose, we have power lines everywhere. I think there's some cities now where you don't really see them as much, but where I grew up in Sacramento and where I am in San Jose, the power lines hang low outside of our houses and you can see them, and people still throw their shoes, hang them over, which is something I remember doing with my little brother, is throwing our Converse over the power lines. But in dreams, I know them to be my inner power lines. Maybe they are my circuits or meridians or something about my DNA helixes or something, but they feel internal. And so there have been dreams, I think I definitely shared a kind of image video I made of lightning striking my power lines, and then I am crowning my grandmother with a crown, restoring her to a higher state, more elevated state. We all should be wearing crowns. This is not a hierarchy. It's not about a monarchy. It's not about being better than other people. It's not about royalty, really. It's just about our own personal highest state. And we all deserve to be wearing crowns. And it felt really good in the dream to crown my grandmother. She's still alive, but in the past year, I've been having a lot of goodbyes with her in the dream realms, and what feel like family councils, standing before the grandmother tree, looking toward the future at the new blood, the new descendants, the new girls that are being born into our lineage, because for so long it was only boys on my father's side. And in the dreams with my grandmother, I am saying goodbye to her, but we are also looking toward the future at the feminine consciousness that is being brought in, and hopefully will not carry out the same karmic storylines from before, because there's been a lot of suffering and pain, unnecessary suffering. Well, that's my opinion. Maybe it was necessary. I don't know. But this is not family therapy. So this is ancestral healing. And so there was my grandmother, and after the lightning hit the power lines, I place a crown on her, and that's all. That's all the symbol. That's all the image needed to deliver, because that act itself was very healing. And even though it happened outside of space and time, this was not something I even told my grandmother in real life about the dream, because I don't need to, because her spirit is aware and I am aware, and we are connected in that way. So some things don't need to be spoken directly to the person, when you've had this event happen with their astral form. So that is one power line stream. And then another one, I'm in this futuristic UFO spaceship going around what feels like the landscape of my inner body and taking trash off of the power lines, plastic bags, and maybe hanging shoes that don't belong there. But I'm taking things off, and it feels like it's really happening within my body. So I feel like that dream itself was just a vision of, I connected with my physiology, my internal cleansing mechanisms, or whatever is going on in there. And I was able to see it in the dream. And most recently, I'm standing outside my house, and there is a Jaguar goddess woman, and she looks like a 50s pinup model, and she is beautiful. She's half feline, half goddess, and she has white lilies just braided around her cat ears and her cat woman face. And she's just laying on my power lines. And often when I see these goddesses in dreams, and Mother Mary, or I have Mother Mary visions or Mary Magdalene visions, They are always, most often, they are wordless, and then if they're not wordless, they are telepathic, because they don't need to speak, because their presence is enough, because this is a godly being, entity. This is a powerful, it's just presence. And so to see this Jaguar goddess on, just lying there on my power lines outside of my house, was very powerful. And the next day in real life, I went hiking with a friend, and a mountain lion crossed the trail and stopped and stared at us. And then a bobcat crossed our path, and we stopped the car and stared at it. And both within the span of less than an hour, to see a mountain lion and a bobcat, which I've never seen before, but to be in their presence felt like an initiation. And that's something I can't even, I can't, I can't go beyond that description, because it was both like terrifying and like amazing. I was in complete awe. So I'll stop there. And I think that was it. There was a big dream, what I think Carl Jung would call a big dream, a really alchemical dream that I've had, that I've shared with a few people, and I'm calling it the changing fish. I'm not ready to share that one, because I think the words will actually diminish the meaning, and there might need to be moving images for it, and I don't know, but that I will definitely share soon. And I think I feel finished with this message. So I hope you enjoyed this audio note version of the newsletter. I appreciate feedback, especially if it goes beyond you should edit this, because I don't want to. So, okay, sending lots of love and lots of light, and I will talk to you soon.